equations, remember our equations that have x squared in it, or with anything that can be written, this is like standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. I don't know that you really need to write all this out. I mean, you can, but I would just say quadratic equation written like this. That would be the easy part to write out. And we can solve these three ways, right? We can factor, we can complete the square, and we can do the quadratic formula. And I don't think you really need to write that bottom sentence at all, really, because we're just going to go through those three ways of solving quadratic equations. So yesterday we reviewed solving linear equations, and today we're going to review solving quadratics. But since it's try time day, we're only going to talk about solving by factoring today, and then tomorrow we're going to do both complete the square and the quadratic formula. So today probably is going to be the easier the 2 days, I would think. I got the syllabus for the Math 137 yesterday, and it's pretty much second semester pre-calculus. So, unit circle, proving trig identity. Yeah, so polar coordinates is on the thing, and the R and theta. We'll see. So when you solve by factoring, you got to get the equation equal to 0 first. So if it's not equal to 0, you got to make sure you do that. Step 2 is factor, which we've been doing a lot this year already. And then the zero product property. If you can factor it into multiplication, remember you can set each factor equal to 0 and solve it. We factor back in our, I don't even know, 7, I don't even know what section it was anymore. But the difference is these are equations now, so we're going to actually solve them to find the solutions or the zeros of this. Some of them are going to be really easy factoring, some of them you might have to do the factor by grouping, but just solve and factor. Maybe tomorrow I'll see you the quadratic formula.
Is it going to be a single?
Sure. As I get to pre-calculus, Brandon Gerke's the only kid ever that's taken me up on the offer, and I'm like, all right, all together now. And he actually was saying it with me, and I was like, whoa, I've never done that before.
He sings all the time.
Oh my gosh, he sings all the time in my class.
It'll be a real tense moment when he did that guy was super excited. And he just sang some love song.
We like dreams in this car. He is singing like with the radio, like every single word to the song. So you're just looking at him.
I do that too.
He's, but I'm not girl like Brandon.
So don't forget that you can factor with a GCF. That's a method of factoring. Sometimes we forget that. We get so used to undoing FOIL that we forget that we can factor like this. And then this is multiplication. So if these multiply together give you 0, one of them has to equal 0. So that's where we set each factor equal to 0. There's an x in front of there. So I'm going to set x equal to 0. Oh my gosh, I don't even have to solve it. And then I'm going to set x plus 6 equal to 0. And if you can go ahead and tell me that's x equals negative 6, you don't have to write that down. But you get 2 answers. Yes? We love that. What about on this one? What should I do first?
Move the x and the plus 3 over.
Yeah, you have to have the equation equal to 0 before you can start factoring. So I like to keep the x squared positive, especially if I'm going to factor. So I'm going to subtract x over and subtract 3 over. And now, this is one of those that has 1 in front, right? Which means tomorrow when we talk about completing the square and the quadratic formula, you might decide you don't want to factor this because you would do the quadratic formula. And that's okay, but today we're factoring, think there is one of the tests that makes you do complete the square, because they want to know that you can complete the square. But other than that, if it just says solve and it doesn't say how you have to do it, then you can do it whichever way you like. But just to remind you, remember we're going to multiply this together, and 2 times -3 is -6. And we ask ourselves, what multiplies to give me -6? That subtracts to give me -1, -3x plus 2x, or you could say 2x minus 3x. You're going to get the same answer. Our parentheses might just be different. And then remember, we bring down the first and the last term, and then we do that factor by grouping, right? We did this last week, maybe. Were you guys here when we did factoring? I forget what you weren't here. I think you weren't. R5, the section that we've had a quiz on, was over factoring. That's the one thing you guys missed, was factoring for you. And so now on mine, I grouped them like this. You might have put the 2x over here because then you could pull a 2x out. But on mine, I grouped them like this. It still works. All I can do is pull an x out, and I'm left with 2x minus 3, which is exactly what's left over here. So what do I pull out if I don't want anything to change? A 1, so that I get 2x minus 3. So I get 2x minus 3 and x plus 1 to factor that. If you really hate factoring like this, that's why it's so great that we can do the quadratic formula, because you can get the same answers when you're solving that. And then we're just going to set each one equal to 0. And if you can just tell by looking, like x plus 1, if you know x equals -1, I'm okay with that. What would this one be? So you would add 3, divide by 2. Those would be your two solutions. Questions about that? I love factoring, so this is something I can just do all day. But
So don't you feel accomplished when you get those two answers?
yes?
I do. Really like it. I was accomplished. It's like it wasn't too hard.
Like, whenever I finish it before her, it makes me really excited.
Yeah.
And then whenever I get it right, too.
One other thing that's on the homework today is the square root method, and this kind of leads us into completing the square, which I thought about doing today, but I was worried about pride time, so I didn't. I think we'll have plenty of time, but that's okay. We can talk about the drill that's coming up. Yes, with this class, so I got to give you instructions. Square root method. If you have x squared equals some number, and that number is positive, we're not talking about imaginary numbers yet, then to solve that, we can just take the square root of both sides. But remember, when you take the square root of both sides, you have to put the plus or minus. That's where the plus or minus comes from in the quadratic formula, because we take the square root of both sides. So on your homework today, I think it says solve using the square root method, so it's trying to, like, it tells you exactly solve each equation by the square root method, so you don't have to not know when to use it. You could FOIL this out, subtract 15, and factor in and still get the right answer. It works. But the idea is it's getting us ready to complete the square tomorrow. Because to get rid of this square here, could I take the square root of both sides? Because when I take the square root of squaring this, what's left? Just x minus 2. And then when I take the square root of this, I have to say plus or minus. Square root of 15 cannot be simplified, so I'm going to leave it as a square root of 15. What if it said the square root of 18? I'd break that down to 9 times 2, and so then that'd be 3 radical 2, right? So simplify our radicals just like we've done so far. And then I just got to solve for x. So what would I do? Add 2. And I always put that number in front because I'm used to the quadratic formula, and I would write that as 2 plus or minus the square root of 15. So those are still real solutions. They're just decimal answers if you worked it out. Irrational answers is what we like to say. And that's pretty much it today. Factoring, square root property. So before I give you the homework, because once I give you the homework, I'll stop listening. Towards the end of the period, like when pride time's supposed to start, instead of having pride time, we're going to have a fire drill, which is a normal thing. We walk outside, we would stay together with me normally. But they're also going to combine that with an evacuation drill. So we're going to have a fire drill / evacuation drill, which means if there was ever a reason that we would have to leave the building, like if there was a bomb threat or if there was a gas leak or something that they wanted us away from the building, the first place that we would go would be the track. And every teacher, whatever class you're in that hour, has a little sign. I have my designated spot on the track that I'm going to hold my sign up. Since we're all going You're gonna do 9 through 24 multiples of 3, 30 through 34 even. That's just 30, 32, and 34. Not very many problems. We don't get out of here until what, 42. So you actually have a good amount of time. You can get a